All right, in the news, the first story, Comcast, Amazon, and Apple are working on a VOD movie rental service, allowing new movies to be streamed 30 to 45 days after theatrical release for $30. Now, for $50, you might be able to get it 17 days after theatrical release. So I get that it would be nice for families to be able to spend $30 to $50 and enjoy the movie in the comfort of their own home, so they don't have to pack up the kids, try and corral everybody through the movie theater lines, etc., waiting at concessions. I get it. But movie going has always been about experiencing it with people. If you go to the movies, typically you don't go see a movie in a theater alone. Now, if you go late enough in the evening or early enough in the morning, like I have, you might be the only person in the theater, or there might be one or two other people in the theater with you, especially if it's a film that's been out for a while. But typically, if you're going to see a movie, there's going to be other people in the theater, and you're going to experience that moment with them, which makes movie-going experience special. So the idea of being able to rent a movie just to watch it in your own home and it's a brand new release that you could see in theaters is still such a new concept that it doesn't quite feel familiar enough to me that I can be like, yeah, this is totally a good idea, or why are we still doing this, right? So I'd like to see kind of what the impact of things might be, especially with stuff that we can get already that's direct to Amazon or direct to Netflix. I don't see a huge outpouring of support for those films yet, unless they're, mind-blowingly good, right? Some of the TV shows on Netflix are just so good that everybody talks about them, and then other people watch them. And then when you get to work, or you're at school or wherever, you're having those water cooler conversations where you're like, did you see that episode? Did you see that? This was super dope. What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. That's cool. But that's after the fact. And then it's not fresh. It's not right there. You're not in the moment. You're recreating a moment, which is slightly different. I'm curious to see kind of how this develops and what the public reaction will be once it's implemented. Because right now I'm like, I don't really like that. But to be fair, if it's 30 days after release, that's 4 weeks, right? So by week 4, usually the theaters are pretty thin anyway. There's not usually a lot of people. Going back to my earlier statement, if you go late at night or early in the morning to a movie that's been out for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, you might be the only one in the theater, or maybe there might be one or two other people. So, trying to keep that in mind, to keep my perspective, is important. So, I encourage you to do the same as these things start to roll out. But we'll kind of see what happens. Like I said, 4 weeks, but the 17-week or the 17-day thing, that's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that. The movies are still, especially if it's a summer blockbuster, like Wonder Woman, which we'll be talking about later in the show. That movie had legs, and it just kept earning money. It just crossed $800 million worldwide. Huge success financially as well as critically, and for us fans, everybody is in agreement for the most part that this is a fantastic movie. So 17 days after release, it's still fresh. There's still a full packed house in the theater. But for other smaller films, indie films, etc., especially as we're coming now into the graveyard of movies, there's 2 times of the year for graveyards. It's at the beginning of the year, after the Christmas rush, so January into February, maybe March, and then it's right after the summer blockbusters hit. So curtailing the end of August into October-ish, and then we get into Oscar movie season where everyone's yeah, give me those dramatic human pieces. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show too, as to what's coming out this weekend and why this is the graveyard. So I think the 30 days is okay, but I think the 17 days is a little too fresh. Denzel Washington is set to come back to the sequel of The Equalizer, currently titled Equalizer 2, which makes this his first sequel ever. Antoine Fuqua is set to direct. Now, Equalizer came out in 2014, so it's been a couple years, so I had to go back and rewatch it. So I just did that this past weekend, and man, I forgot how good that movie was. It's long. It's a little long, and I think that's mostly because of the opening of the movie is a little slow, right? Because we're getting to know the character. We're getting to know Chloe Moretz' character, who is kind of the match that sparks Denzel's character to get back into the lifestyle that he once had. So It's a little slow at the beginning, but then, you know, once we understand what's going on and we get into that scene with the Russians in that restaurant or that office bar restaurant area, like, we're off and running. And Antoine Fuqua is such a great director when it comes to street level gritty violence. If you were to be like, what property would you like Antoine Fuqua to direct for a superhero film? I would say that I would throw him up in the category of, you know, a Daredevil movie, a Batman movie, a Green Arrow movie, any of those like detective-ish kind of films where you got a lot of punching, a lot of gunplay. In Green Arrow's case, obviously, you know, bow and arrows with explosions and stuff like that. But like any of those street level characters that use their hands, their fists, and their body to combat people, right? Less superpowers, more human. Like, that's where I would like to see him go, because he is really good at capturing emotion on a human level in the midst of combat. So, and that is prevalent in The Equalizer. It was such a great film. I forgot how much I enjoyed it. So watching it this past weekend, I was like, yep, looking forward to The Equalizer 2. Now, this is, again, his first sequel ever, and he's going to be working with the same director he worked with. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get something good, just like we did with The Equalizer, and it won't be like, you know, shouldn't have waited 3 years, 4 years to make that. Hopefully it'll be good. Hopefully we'll have a good time at the theater, and hopefully we'll get that same type of gritty street level violence again, just to keep repeating that phrase, in this next sequel, because I thought it was fantastic. So if you haven't seen The Equalizer, you can rent it on iTunes. It's $4, or you can just go to like your local used bookstore, support local people, and you can pick it up there. I got mine for $4. It was a DVD, you know, and super cheap. So I own it now. Instead of just having it for $4 for a day, I have it for, you know, however long I have it. Go support local. Go to your local bookstore. Check it out. Or, you know, Redbox. You can always rent it for $1. But definitely worth your time. It's a little longer, but still fun. Godzilla vs. Kong will take place in the present following the events of Godzilla 2. This will not be a period piece, per director Adam Wingard. Okay, so I didn't see the first Godzilla movie because I heard it wasn't that great, and I heard that Godzilla is not really in it, which was confusing because it's a Godzilla movie. But I did see King Kong, and I really enjoyed King Kong for what it was, just monsters fighting monsters and then humans trying to survive, right? And then there's the human element where Samuel L. Jackson goes crazy, and then it's like, you know, the struggle and the tension between his character and the other characters. It was just a really well done film, and it was a lot of fun. So when they said, yeah, we're gonna do, you know, the Godzilla versus Kong movie, and then they showed the pictures of like Mothra and other stuff, I was like, this could be super dope if they do it right. And with today's special effects teams, I don't see why they can't. So I'm looking forward to this. I was really excited when they announced it. And the fact that they're doing it in the present means that Kong should be even more gigantic than he was, because that was set, you know, like in the 70s. So the present, now fast forward, you know, 40 plus years, 50 plus years. I would assume that you're like me and you're excited that this is going to be a thing that we're all going to get to enjoy. So I hope you're excited about it, because I am, because, you know, monsters beating each other up, who doesn't like that? That's crazy awesome. So check it out. Go back and watch Kong. It's now on DVD and Blu-ray, so you definitely can pick that up. You might not be able to find it used, so you may want to, in this case, rent it, since it's only $4 versus whatever the full price, like $20 or whatever it is to buy it. But hey, if you're a super fan like me when it comes to movies and you want to own the physical media, then definitely pick it up. But go back and revisit Kong. If you want to see my review for it, it's in the show notes below, because that was one I did get to theaters to see and write about. So check it out. James Cameron is back in the news, but not for filmmaking. He recently stated during an interview with The Guardian the following: "All of the self-congratulatory back-patting Hollywood's been doing over Wonder Woman has been so misguided. She's an objectified icon, and it's just male Hollywood doing the same old thing." To which the director of Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins, replied, "James Cameron's inability to understand what Wonder Woman is or stands for to women all over the world is unsurprising, As though he is a great filmmaker, he is not a woman. Strong women are great. His praise of my film Monster and our portrayal of a strong yet damaged woman was so appreciated. But if women have to always be hard, tough, and troubled to be strong, and we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she is attractive and loving, then we haven't come very far, have we? I believe women can and should be everything, just like male lead characters should be. There is no right and wrong kind of powerful woman, and the massive female audience who made the film a hit it is can surely choose and judge their own icons of progress. Further along in the interview, he compares Sarah Connor as a strong female character, which is part of what was the reason for Patty Jenkins' reply when she says you don't have to be all gritty and mean and disturbed and troubled to be a strong female character. And I gotta say, if you're gonna compare Sarah Connor in Terminator to Wonder Woman, outside of the fact that they're both female leads, I don't really see the comparison, because they're two such opposites as far as personality and story goes, that it's not even, in my opinion, it's not even a reasonable comparison to try and stack those two up against each other. Now, if you were to do like a Twitter poll and you were like, who did you like better? Okay, great. But if you're actually going to compare them just on the basis of like who's a better character and who's more fit to be a female icon, I think you're out of your league here. Now, James Cameron's made some great films. Everybody knows that. That's not in question. But for him to speak up and be like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Can we spell sour grapes? Wonder Woman just made over $800 million worldwide. And you're going to be like, well, meh. Give me a break, Cameron. You were so far out of your league on this one. This is ridiculous. She was strong. She was determined. She was heroic. She was intelligent. She was compassionate. She was loving. I mean, she had so much in her character that just blew me away in the theaters. I saw that movie like 3 or 4 times in the theaters because it was such a strong film in general. Now, the ending falls apart a little bit at the end. The CGI gets a little... I mean, the movie itself is going to stand alone for probably 20 years, unless some weird thing happens, like where Christopher Nolan comes in and makes, Wonder Woman the movie, and he does it in a completely different fashion, and we get that resurgence like with what happened with Dark Knight. But I don't see that happening, because Wonder Woman was so good, and everybody had such a great time in the theater with it. I see that movie lasting a generation. I really do. I think there's little kids growing up right now that are watching Wonder Woman. You've seen the photos on the internet of Gal Gadot talking to these little girls and them being like wearing their little Wonder Woman capes and stuff like that. Like, it's adorable. So I don't see this movie going anywhere. This was a great film, and for James Cameron to be like, well, she's just objectified. Like, what reality are you in, bro? Like, what is going on? Sour grapes. That's what I smell. So if you walk by James Cameron, he's probably not drunk on wine. It's just the sour grapes. The DCEU is making movie decisions as random as a Family Guy script. So let's go ahead and take a look at their film slate. We have Aquaman, Wonder Woman 2, Flash, Shazam without Black Adam, a Black Adam movie right now currently set to star Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We have a Joker solo origin film. We have a Joker and Harley movie. We have Gotham City Sirens. We have Batgirl. We have Suicide Squad 2. And we have The Batman, which right now might be set in the 1980s. And Matt Reeves says that might not necessarily be part of the DCEU, but it will still have some type of tie-in, possibly. So we'll have to stay tuned for more information on that as The Batman gets closer and closer to release. What are you doing, DC? This is so all over the place. You've got Joker and Harley, Gotham City Sirens, Batgirl, The Batman. That's 5 movies right there that the Joker could be in. And you're going to have 2 separate Jokers at one point from the rumor mill. So what are we doing? Why are we... Like, I get the points that, with the comparison to comics, right? I get those points to where, like, you could have a one-shot comic, which is just that single issue of that particular character in its own little world, its own reality, right? And that could be what they're doing for the Joker movie, the origin film that Scorsese is set to produce or is looking to produce with Todd Phillips. the director. So I get it, right? It's a one shot. But what are we doing? Why are you intentionally trying to confuse your audience even more? Now, people who follow the movie news, like myself and you guys who are watching the show, you guys get the information so we can clear things up and we can make sense of the madness that they're trying to create online with all of these bizarre pairings. I just don't get it. You've got Superman now. We haven't seen Justice League, so we don't know what's going to happen there. They're saying Flash is going to be Flashpoint, where he could reset everything in the timeline, which means we may have like the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman from one reality mixed with a Batman, which could be completely different from another reality. And then maybe that solo Joker origin film with Todd Phillips and Scorsese, that could bring in a new Joker. Like, there's myriad possibilities for this, right? It's the Flash. With the Flash, you can pretty much rewrite your entire catalog of films, because one film with the Flash could change everything. Like, if you follow comics, you know that. So, and if you don't, stay here on this show and I'll walk you through it. What are we doing, DC? Like, it feels like you're just reaching you have like all these ideas, like you're sitting around the table and you're like throwing these ideas into a fishbowl and you pull out a thing and you're like, oh, this is what we're gonna do now. And it's like, who does this? It's almost like the Key and Peele sketch for Gremlins 2, where the guy comes in and he's like the script doctor, and they just go around the room coming up with all of these absurd ideas, and the guy who's at the head of the table is like, no, we're not doing that. But then every crazy idea gets made. Like, I feel like that's what's going on right now in the DCEU. Like, no one has a firm set plan. You're going to make a Shazam movie, but you're not going to have his arch rival, who's really his only villain. Like, I mean, he's fought Superman and stuff like that, but it's Shazam and Black Adam. Like, those two guys head to head. Like, that's the team up you want to see. And the idea that you're going to have a Shazam movie without his arch nemesis, possibly not even explaining why he's the arch nemesis, like, and then he's going to, the arch nemesis will have his own solo movie, but then you have 5 other movies that the Joker could be in, and there's no real talk about if Shazam is ever even going to cross over. Like, communicate what your plan is so you can actually quell the fears and the stress of your DC fanboys and fangirls. Like, because you said you're building a universe, just like Marvel, you know, an extended universe of films that all of these stories are going to be wrapped up. That's what you guys said. So explain it. If you're going to have these characters that aren't part of that, are you scrapping that idea? Then just say it. We're not doing that anymore. Here's what we're doing. Great, cool. I'm straight. Let's move forward with that plan then, because you guys can make good movies. We've just seen it with Wonder Woman. I enjoyed the Superman film, even though it was mixed reviews. There were parts of Suicide Squad I enjoyed up to that 3rd act. Like, I know you guys can do it. Just do it, and then communicate what you are planning to do so that we can sit back and have some type of anticipation for what's about to come, because now we're excited, because we're like, okay, we know you guys can do it. Tell us what you're going to do so we can get excited about it with you. And we're good. All right, we had some action on Netflix this week as Jerry Seinfeld gets a stand-up special on Netflix. There was an official trailer for that and the premiere date of September 19th of this year, as well as the new animated comedy by Nick Kroll and Andrew Goldberg, Big Mouth. That released a teaser trailer, and both of those links are in the show notes below. I mean, this is pretty cool news, right? We have Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, which has been running on Crackle. So, and if you aren't familiar with what Crackle is, it's an app for streaming. It's a video on demand, a VOD service. And Seinfeld has been working exclusively with Crackle on the series Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, which I am a huge fan of. I love Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. I think the one he does with Ricky Gervais, and the one he does with Brian Regan, and the one he does with Alec Baldwin, knock it out of the park. He's had a lot of other ones that were really good. The one with Jimmy Fallon was funny. Like, there's a lot of people he brings on that are, they slay. They slay. It's, 20 to 30 minutes of just 2 comedians in a car driving to get coffee, and they're just talking like comedians would talk. It's absolutely brilliant and so much fun. So check out Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. But Netflix approached him and said, hey, we want to eventually transition you from Crackle to Netflix, so Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee can be on Netflix, which I think is amazing. So looking forward to that. But now they also have a stand-up special he's going to be doing. Now, the description of it was like him going through and working through some stuff, which made me kind of go, wait a minute, why? The Comedian, the movie, The Comedian, was that. So I'm looking forward to getting more information about what this special is going to be as we get closer, because the stand-up special is talking about like, yeah, it's going to show him working through old material and trying to get back into it, and that literally is the movie The Comedian. Now, if you're an artist and you're trying to create something, and you're trying to, figure out where you want to go with your artistry, a musician, whatever, it doesn't matter. The lessons that you can learn from The Comedian, I think, span all of artistry. I think no matter what field you're in, if you're just starting out or you're trying to create something new because you're kind of burned out of one category. So let's say you were a painter and you just can't do that anymore, so now you're a writer, or you want to get back to something else. He really walks you through like what your mindset needs to be to get back on top, right? And to really achieve what you're trying to achieve. And then there's like a side story with another comedian that he has a whole different view of things. But if you just watch the parts with Seinfeld and you hear his thought process on what it takes for him to create this new material and how much he feels he needs to work and why he feels that way, it's really inspiring. So I definitely recommend you check out The Comedian. It's a documentary, but it's still a movie, and this new thing on Netflix sounds like that thing that already exists. So I'm curious to see what the difference between the two will be, and if there will be any difference at all. I don't know. It may just be like a Netflix version of that, so it'd be like Comedian 2.0. We'll have to wait and see. But then Nick Kroll, like this, it looks good. It looks funny, right? So check it out. Animated comedies for adults right now are kind of hitting big, and I think it's because you can get away with more in animation as far as dialogue is concerned. Like, you can really push the boundaries. So if you're like 40 and under, you grew up with shows like on reruns, so stuff like All in the Family and Laugh-In, Sanford and Son, like where they were really pushing the boundaries of comedy, and they took risks. Even the first Police Academy movie, like these were, if you stack that movie up today, like you wouldn't be able to make these shows or these movies today. Like there'd be no way. The PC police would be all over it. It would be shut down. There would be vitriol all over Twitter. Like it'd be game over. So, but definitely check out the trailers. They're in the show notes below. All right, next up we have some honorable mentions. Forbes releases the top paid actors list. So congratulations to Mark Wahlberg on being the #1 highest paid actor at $68 million. Morgan Freeman will receive a SAG Life Achievement Award on January 21st of 2018. He's the 54th recipient for career achievement and humanitarian efforts. James Gunn confirms that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will set up the MCU for the next 10 years. #ambitious. Sony announced a 5-disc box set of all the live-action Spider-Man films, and that is set to arrive sometime in October. All right, so that's it for the news this week. If there's anything that popped off in the headlines that you saw that we didn't cover here, go ahead and throw it in the show notes below. And all week long, we can keep that conversation going about what we see and what we think, and really build out that community of movie lovers and movie enjoyers.